Welcome in, Gloria. No need to apologize. We are working on the Unit 1 Perform assignment, by the way, in Connect. But aside from that, also do not become frustrated with yourself if for some reason we try to pace it so that no one falls behind. But sometimes that can happen because computers freeze, they cut off, they do all types of things, right? And if you have to log off and log back in, I'm very sorry that you'll have to do that. We try to wait as long as we can to make sure everybody is still on the same track, but some weeks it's just almost impossible, especially if we're trying to get done within that hour. Luckily for this assignment, we only have one question on this assignment. Usually it's two questions every week, but for this one, it's just one. And so do not become frustrated with yourself if you feel like you cannot keep up, because again, this is recorded. You can play it back as many times as you need to get what you need. Okay. So don't be frustrated by that. All right. So thank you for confirming that you're able to see some things that you want to see here on this screen. The first is being the number of points that it is worth. Second being the attempt. So you got 3 attempts per assignment, right? Now the Check My Work resource is a very good resource. You get Check My Work 3 times per question. So since this is only one question, after 3 times, you won't be able to hit Check My Work anymore, which is why it's so important to use those very sparingly per question that you are completing. The same thing goes for your practice assignments as well. But we're going to go ahead and click continue here. And I always tell everyone to read what is in red, even though it becomes redundant because it's the same thing that you see every single week. However, we read it because it may have some valuable information for us. So this says to assume the taxpayer does not wish to contribute to the presidential election fund unless otherwise stated in the problem. In addition, the taxpayers did not receive, sell, send, exchange, or otherwise acquire any financial interest in any virtual currency during the year. So this says Marie Lincoln is a head of household. That's her taxpayer status. She is 37 years old. She lives in Miami, Florida, and they have given us her W-2 information here. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to say this before anybody comments it. If you haven't noticed, the way that this window looks, unfortunately, it is kind of small, but I don't have much control other than to do that. Okay. So it'll be a lot of going to the left, to the right, up and down, but this is a window within a window. Okay. So it's very hard to be able to make this a little bigger for you. I would love to do that, but I cannot. So they also gave us a form 1099 INT for her for A&D Bank. She has one dependent, her son. He is under 17, so we know he qualifies for child tax credit. We have his social, and her occupation is a retail store manager. Now it says under required for us to prepare a 1040, form 1040, and a schedule 8812 for 2023. That is very important. This is tax year 2023. I know that we are in 2025, but that book was published at the top of 2023. And it says she is entitled to the child tax credit. For now, enter the credit on the appropriate line of the form. She wants to contribute. This is very important. Even though the red said to assume she doesn't want to contribute unless it says otherwise in the problem, this is a problem where it is saying clearly that she wants to contribute to the presidential election campaign. Now, we are to use the tax tables at the appropriate time, and I'll let you know when to open those, but we are to complete the 1040 and the schedule 8812. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to enter in the preliminary information. The good thing about this program is that once you start typing, it'll have a drop down where you can simply select what you need. So you don't have to necessarily type everything out. It may be 1 or 2 letters first. So her first name is Marie. I'm going to select that there. Her last name is Lincoln. I'm going to select that there. And her social that they have given us is 412. Please make sure you put the dashes just like you see me doing here. No problem. Welcome in, Luke. We are working on the Unit 1 Perform assignment if you want to join in. So 412-34-5670. Please put the dashes, because the moment you don't put the dashes, it does not list the social on the other forms that you have to complete, and it's going to mark you incomplete for it. All right. No spouse to enter here. So we're going to go straight to the home address field. Her home address starts off with 4110. And we're going to select this from the drop down, 4110 Northeast 13th Street. There is no apartment number, but city is Miami, Florida. We're going to select that 33127. Always confirm that information based off of what the problem states. Now, as I read to you, she does, in fact, want to contribute to the presidential election campaign. So we are going to check this box here that says you, because she's the taxpayer, under presidential election campaign. Below that, we are going to select her filing status, which, as I read in the problem, is head of household. So please make sure you check the box for head of household. And directly below that, where it says digital assets, we're going to select no, because it's stated in the problem that she did not sell, exchange, or purchase or receive any type of digital assets. Now, below that is the standard deduction and the age and blindness test. She doesn't have a spouse. No one else can claim her as a dependent. So this is not relevant to us. We don't need to check any boxes here. The age and blindness test, looking at her age, she's 37 years old. So we don't need to do an age and blindness test, because clearly she was not born before 1959. So we can go below that to her dependent information. And her son's name is Stephen. His first name is Stephen. Last name, he has the same last name, which is Lincoln. And the social that they gave us for him is 412-34-5672. His relationship, this is the taxpayer's son. Okay, so you want to select that. And you want to check this box under child tax credit, because as they stated in the problem, she qualifies for child tax credit. This dependent is not considered a other dependent because he is the taxpayer cared for this child, her son, 12 months of the year. Okay, so he's not considered a other, he's a direct relative. Once you get all of this preliminary information in, please let me know in the chat, and then we'll move forward to the income section. All right, so it looks like many of you have that preliminary information. So let's go down to the income section, which is basically line 1A. All right. So line 1A deals with the W-2 information that we received for this taxpayer. And the income that is in box one, or is for box one, is 43,611. Okay. So something also, if you're new to tax and you've never done a form, we don't put cents in a form unless it is a schedule that requires that you list cents, and it will usually say that. Outside of that, you always round everything to the nearest dollar. Okay. You don't need to put a dollar sign in front of it or anything. You just type in the number itself. Yes, this is McGraw-Hill, and this is Unit 1, Perform Assignment. And so don't ever put a dollar sign in there. It might even block you from doing it. It's not necessary. Just put in the number itself and always round it to the nearest dollar. Now, in saying that, unless the form requires that you enter a hard zero, do not just enter zeros where there is blanks or where the lines are not applicable to the taxpayer. Okay. We only enter hard zeros when it is necessary, when it is required. And you'll have some instances like that in this class, and I'll let you know when they are, when they come up. But as for now, do not enter zeros unnecessarily. Now, we have her W-2 info here. Once you enter it in line 1A, it's going to also bring it down to line 1Z. On line 2B, remember that interest that they stated in the problem she received from the bank. She received a 1099 INT statement from the bank, and it was A&D Bank, I believe, and it was $556. That is considered, anytime you get any type of interest income from a bank or from your brokerage or whatever it is, a dividend, etc., all of those things are taxable. So that is considered taxable interest. We are going to put that $556 on line 2B here. Okay. So line 1A, you should have that 43,611. Line 1Z, you should have 43,611. Line 2B, you should have $556. Please confirm that you have this before we move to the next portion. And before we move any further, Jessica, I know you just, I don't know, maybe you just joined. Were you able to pull it up or pull up this assignment? Are you able to work on this as we are working on this, or are you simply following along? Okay, so I will repeat it again. I'm assuming you're talking about the interest. Ivy, are you switching to a computer, or are you gonna, I guess, charge your phone? So the interest, anytime you receive interest income from your bank, or, dividend income from your brokerage, that is taxable. So no, it shouldn't drop your 1Z amount, because what amount you put in 1A is going to go on 1Z, and it doesn't move after that. So check your box on 1A and make sure all you have is 43,611. That is the number that is going to go to line 1Z. So you don't have to enter anything on 1Z. However, Line 2B is where you need to enter that interest that she received on her 1099 statement of $556. Okay, so as long as in line 1A, all you have in that box is 43,611, that's correct. And as long as you have in 2B 556, that is correct. Now, everybody that says that you're ready and you're good to go, the side numbers 1A and 1B, then I have 1Z fields and number 9. Yes, those are automatic. Any time that it automatically adds things for you, you don't have to touch those areas. Leave them as they are because they're going to continue to change. Okay. Okay, thanks, Ivy. I still need to confirm, Jessica, are you working along with us? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. You're okay. I got it. Got it. I see it. All right. So now the line that we want to go down to is the line 12, which deals with standard or itemized deductions. Now, what makes this simple is this taxpayer has no itemized deductions because they did not give us any, right? And the rule is if the itemized deductions are higher, if you had itemized deductions, if they're higher than the standard deduction that they want you to use, welcome in, Quincy, then you use whichever one is higher, right? That's the tax benefit of it all. But if they only have one number, then that's all you use. And in this case, we weren't given any itemized deductions. All we have is the standard. So her taxpayer status is head of household. It tells you here in this little left-hand block that head of household standard deduction is $20,800. So in box 12, that's the exact amount that you're going to enter, $20,800. All right. Now, you do not need to enter anything on line 13 that is not applicable to this taxpayer. Line 15, it says to subtract line 14 from line 12. So welcome in, Patricia. So subtract line 14 from line 12. I'm sorry, from line 11. Line 11 is 44,167, and we're going to subtract out 20,800. So 40, and I'm doing this manually on my calculator. You can do the same if you would like. But 44,167 minus 20,800 should give us 23,367 to go on line 15. I need everyone who is actively doing this as I am doing this to confirm that you have the same amounts on your line 11, your line 12, your line 14, and your line 15. Okay, Anna, what specifically in terms of numbers, which line is different from what I have? No problem, Patricia. That's totally fine because as soon as we get off of this chat, it will probably take about 3 or 4 minutes and then the recording will actually be available. Okay, Anna, line 14. So are you entering? You have to manually enter in that 20,800. That's the number that you enter in yourself. So you're supposed to enter in the standard deduction for the head of household taxpayer status, which is 20,800. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is if you've confirmed that you have everything here, we are now going to go to the 1040 page 2. You can either click the tab at the top, just like I did, 1040 page 2 there, or you at the bottom can click the next button and it'll still take you to that next tab, okay? But I usually just click the tab from the top, 1040 page 2. It should start with line 16. Now, here's where line 16 is asking for the tax. I'm going to open up the tax table. You do not have to, because I don't know what kind of bandwidth you're working with, and I don't know what computer you're on, and I don't want anything to shut you out of the classroom, and I don't want you to get behind if you can avoid it. So I'm going to open the tax form and display it here so you can see exactly where we pull this number from. Now, another disclaimer is that when this book was published, or when this edition was published, and usually this happens every single tax period, what is published as far as tax tables, EIC tables, etc., in the appendices, for the most part, are correct and totally aligned with what the IRS stated they were. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, their tax tables and the tax tables that the IRS actually published in 2023, probably after some revisions, might differ. And when that happens, I usually show you, what the correct number is. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. So I'm going to open up, anytime you're trying to find the tax, I'm going to open up their link to the tax tables so we can see where this taxpayer falls. Now, that last number on line 15, which was the 23,000, and let me be completely accurate when I say that. So that amount that was on line 15 that we just recorded before we came to this page, 23,367, just so you know, that is the taxpayer's taxable income. Okay. Thank you, Natasha, for confirming that. That is the taxpayer's taxable income. And we need that in order to find out what their tax is. And so this is the tax table usually that you would pull up. All right. And you're taking the taxable income and you're looking under their column for their taxpayer status. In this case, the taxpayer's head of household, so it's the last column. We're going to go to that range of income. So we're going to go down to the 23,000s, which are here. And I'm going to try to, this I can control in terms of Zoom. So we're looking for 23,367, which more or less falls here because it is more than 23,350, but much less than 23,400. And if we're going by the head of household, which is the last column here, it says that this taxpayer's tax for 2023 is 2,491. Now, this is using the tax table methods. There are other methods to finding out what is the tax, such as the percentage method, and we'll learn that over time. But as of now, the tax for this taxpayer is 2,491. So I'm going to go here to our 1040, and in box 16, we're going to put 2,491. All right. Please confirm you have this before we go to these other schedules. All right, so we are now going to go to line 19. And as you can see, line 19 says child tax credit or credit for other dependents from Schedule 8812, which means we need to go and complete Schedule 8812. So the very first thing I want you to do is I want you to go to Schedule 8812. That tab is right here at the top. As long as the taxpayer has a dependent, we'll always use this form or insert this schedule. All right. So on Schedule 8812 here, the very first line asks us to enter the amount from line 11 on our form 1040. I can tell you that amount is 44,167, which is essentially the AGI. All right. Now, lines 2A down to 2C are not applicable to this taxpayer. The 0 that is on line 2D, that is automatically entered, so you don't need to modify that in any way. Line 4 is asking for the number of children or number of dependents that are under the age of 17, under the qualifying age of 17. She only has one dependent, and he is in fact 10. So he's under the age of 17. You put a 1 there in box 4. In box 5 or line 5, it's basically telling you to take line 4 and multiply it by 2,000. We know anything multiplied by 1 is simply 2,000. So currently you should have in box 1, 44,167, box 2D, 0, box 3, 44,167, and box 5, 2,000. Please confirm you have this before we go any further. I'm sorry, Gloria. I'm guessing you'll probably go back and watch the recording, hopefully, and be able to follow it along, at your own pace. I'm sorry about that. All right. So now you're going to go down on your form. Line 6 is not applicable to this taxpayer. And line 7 is not applicable to this taxpayer. But line 9. Okay, Ivy, I'm sorry to hear that as well. I'm glad you can still hear it, though. At least you'll be able to go back and watch it. It might just be the bandwidth. These Zoom meetings, they take a lot of bandwidth. Welcome in, Andrew. So line 9 states to enter the amount shown below for your filing status. This taxpayer is head of household, and so we're going to enter 200,000 for her on line 9. All right. And line 10, this is one of those instances I mentioned where I will let you know where you need to enter a hard zero. Okay. Line 10 says subtract line 9 from 3. And if the amount is 0 or less, enter 0. Well, line 9 is way more than line 3, which means it's going to result in a negative number for us. So that's less than 0. So we're going to enter 0, a hard 0 on line 10. All right. Line 11 is not applicable because if you multiply line 10 by anything, it is still going to be 0. So line 11, leave it blank. This is important, and I don't want you to miss it because it's so easy to miss. But line 12, it says, is the amount on line 8 more than the amount on line 11? Well, yes, it is. So we're going to check the box, yes. All right. And it says enter the result. So on line 12, we're going to enter that 2,000. Line 13 says enter the amount from credit limit worksheet A. We haven't done credit limit worksheet A yet, but I can tell you that this amount is the same amount that we just calculated as far as the tax. So what you're going to enter on line 13 is 2,491. And then line 14, enter the smaller of line 12 or 13, which we clearly see it is 12. So we're going to enter 2,000. Now, this is the same amount we're going to enter on line 19 when we go back to the form 1040, but I want everyone to confirm that is actively working on this, that you have the same amounts that I have in line 8, line 9, line 10, line 12, 13, and 14. We're not frozen, Andrew. We're okay. All right. So now that everybody has confirmed that, we're going to go to the Schedule 88 Worksheet A tab. Schedule 8812 Worksheet A tab. And here, line 1, it says enter the amount from line 18 of your form 1040. That is the tax amount. Okay. So 2,491 is what you're going to enter there. Once you enter that, this section 2 is not applicable to the taxpayer. So when we go down to line 3, it says subtract line 2 from line 1, which is simply, we're bringing down 2,491. All right. Now, once you have that, line 4 says, if you are not completing credit limit worksheet B, enter 0. This is another instance where we enter a hard 0 because we're being told to do so. So we're going to enter a 0 on line 4. And then we are going to go to line 5 where it says to subtract line 4 from line 3, which again is just bringing down 2,491. So at this point, you should confirm that you have the same amount on line 1, which is 2,491, line 3, 2,491, line 4, 0, and line 5, 2,491. All right. So now we're going to go back to the 1040 page 2. 1040 page 2, because now we can complete this problem. The 1040 page 2. And where we left off on this form is line 19. And so line 19 wants to know what your child tax credit is from Schedule 8812, which if you remember, it is 2,000. So that's what you want to enter on line 19, which is also going to enter that same amount on line 21. Line 22 says to subtract line 21 from line 18. 2,491 minus 2,000 is simply 491. You're going to place that on line 22. It is going to automatically enter that same amount on line 24. All right. So now that we have everything here, it gave us the information for the W-2. And so on line 25A here, where it states the federal income tax withheld from form W-2, they gave us 2,488. That is the amount that they gave us. Okay. All right. And so what you should automatically have on line 27, you didn't have to enter that, but it should be there, 381. Do not change that, leave it as it is. And so now lastly, we go to line 34, which says if line 33 is more than line 24, subtract line 24 from line 33. So our line 24 is 491. So 2,869, and I'm just doing it on my calculator. You can do it as well if you would like. 2,869 minus 491 leaves us with 2,378 to place on line 34. And on line 35A, you're going to enter the exact same amount, 2,378. Now, anytime we're doing these returns, we don't ever have to enter any routing number, account number, anything below line 35A. So please confirm that you have line 25D, 27, 32, 33, 34, and 35A. All right, so what I am going to do, I'm going to scroll to the top half just to make sure. Everybody, please confirm that you have the exact same thing on this form as I do at the top. Okay, Ivy, no problem. So I'm going to hit check my work. You don't have to. I'm going to make sure everything says complete just to show you how this looks. I'm going to hit check my work. Remember, you only get 3 times per question. And what you want to see is answer complete and correct. If it's not correct and you've missed something, missed checking a box or miss entering a number, it's going to say incomplete and it's going to have a red X. Okay. Now, I will say that if you get that for this assignment, you need to message me either in the messenger or send me an email and say, hey, mine is saying incomplete. Can you look at it and tell me what I need to fix? And I will happily do that. All right. Outside of that, I really hope that this live chat was helpful for you. And I hope that this shows you how it will technically be going into the coming weeks. I understand that you are just getting acclimated to tax, to the course, and all of those things. And so I implore you to definitely read all announcements, read all messenger messages. As I promised, I am going to send an email about the tutoring because there is supposed to be a tutor for tax. And I'm not understanding why they're still saying that there is no one. So I need to find out the details on that. And once I do, I will share it with everyone via messenger as well as student email. Okay. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your week as well. We'll see each other back here next week, actually on Wednesday, which is the normal live chat day. Okay. Be safe. Don't overwhelm yourself. It's going to be all right. You're going to make it through this class. All right. And the office hour is on Friday. So check the dashboard for that. All right. But outside of that, you guys have a great rest of your day. Line 15 was 23,367. As far as the grades usually take about 24 hours, I would say 24 to 48 hours to automatically transfer. And typically, if you do the assignment past the due date, it's still that 24 to 48 hours. So don't be afraid if you don't see it in there right away. It's automatically updating, I think, every couple of hours or something. I think that's what it does. And so it will show your grade probably give or take about probably as soon as 12 hours, at latest 48 hours. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day. We're going to end the class now. The recording should be available in probably about 5 minutes or so. Thank you so much.